All right, everyone, welcome back to my living room. Today, we're going to tackle one of my favorite subjects, which is color clashing. Now, this is one that a lot of guys struggle with, and while it may seem a little confusing or counterintuitive at first, once you break it down and systemize it, as we like to do at Style Me Boston, it'll actually become very digestible and easy to manage. So, color clashing. The name sort of says it all. In the context of style, color clashing refers to colors that are too jarring or too abrasive when next to each other and tend not to look good, and they tend to be disruptive to your outfit. Now, there are three main causes of this. One is overly saturated colors, the other is bad complementary color pairings, and finally, the trickiest would be seasonal tone clashing. But before we delve into the specifics, I'd really like to break down the root cause and the underlying issue of color clashing. So at its core, it comes down to contrast. Now you want some contrast in your outfits. If you have too little contrast, then the pieces sort of blur together like a jumpsuit and you lose out on visual depth, which is a bad thing. On the other hand, when you have too much contrast, that will make something look out of place. And that is really what we're trying to talk about here with color clashing in the context of style and fashion. Now, interestingly enough, with graphic design, sometimes a color clash is desirable because it's very eye-catching and it'll really pop out. But I can't emphasize enough that when it comes to style, you don't want to look like a sports jersey or like a flashy billboard. You want to look sophisticated and well put together. So, on that note, talking about the first cause of color clashing, oversaturated colors. The best way to put it is with colors in your clothing, think of a smartphone in the dark. When it's too bright, it just hurts to look at. And some examples of that would be right here. We've got, a blue shirt should look good with gray trousers, or a blue shirt should look good with khaki chinos. But when the brightness is too high, it's just painful to look at. That isn't to say that you can't use vivid colors. There are a lot of times when they are very helpful and are very stylish, but you got to find this line in the sand, and anything past that is radioactive and poisonous to your style. So let's use better examples. Here we've got, it's a very powerful blue, but it's not crossing that line into radioactive territory, and then it suddenly looks very striking and charming with gray. Here we've got a bright, vivid blue gingham shirt with khaki chinos, but again, not crossing that line. The brightness, saturation, and hence contrast has been toned down just enough to where, again, it's catching, it's powerful, but not like jarring and ugly and abrasive. So that is the first cause. Now the second cause, on that note, is bad complementary color pairings. Now, if you're an art student, you've surely seen the color wheel before. The gist of it is that for every primary color, which is red, yellow, and blue, there is an opposite color, which is complementary to it. The opposite of blue is orange. The opposite of yellow is purple. The opposite of red is green. And now, the complementary color, the color that goes with it, it doesn't go with it in the sense that it looks good with it necessarily. It goes with it in the sense that that will provide the primary color with the most color contrast. It will make it stand out the most. Red will never look more red than when it's paired with green. Blue will never look more blue than when it's paired with orange, and vice versa. So how does this apply to style? For whatever reason, some poor advice that's floating around, a surprising amount of men's style gurus, media, is the advice that you should strive to pair complementary colors together. Now, don't get me wrong. If done well, and if you have the prerequisite understanding of color coordination to make that work, it can look very striking in a good way. But for people who are just beginning, that's horrible advice because, again, that is where you're most likely to have too much contrast and consequently to make the colors clash. So the way to make complementary color pairings work is to take that saturation and tone it down, because again, figure that, because they're complementary colors, they're already starting at very high contrast levels. So even, what a green that would look fine by it, with any other color, and a red that might look fine with any other color, if you put those together, even though they're sort of just medium saturation, suddenly you've got Christmas gone wrong. And a lot of times guys make the mistake of both, using overly saturated colors and putting them together with their complementary colors, and then it's just disastrous. But again, if you take the lesson from the first cause to heart and you tone down your saturation and intensity of the colors, that's where you might be able to make the complementary color pairings work and even look good. But again, when you're starting out, a lot of times not the route to go. And finally, we've got the trickiest and most elusive type of color clash, and that is seasonal clashing. Now, figure this. Let's just break it into the extremes here. You've got cold weather, like winter, middle December, January, and you've got warm weather, like middle of June, July. And you've got tones that are appropriate in each of them. If you look at the world around you and the colors around you in the dead of winter after a snowstorm, everything is sort of dark and gray and muted, and the trees have lost their color, the sky is gray and cloudy. Conversely, if you look at, a sunny summer day, the flowers are in bloom, they're very bright and lively, the sky is, a striking blue, everything is just brighter and lighter. And the clothes that you wear, if you're conscious of these things, generally will look best when they are in tune with the world around them. So what I mean by that is sometimes you'll see a guy wearing clothes, if you see a guy wearing a bright blue and pink plaid shirt in the middle of winter with all of his more muted, charcoal jacket and sweaters and stuff, it just looks really out of place. Or conversely, I'm sure you've seen, like someone leaving Hot Topic decked out in black in the middle of, like on a hot August day, and it just, maybe they're trying to make a statement, but it looks generally odd. Now, where this can get really tricky is when you've got clothes that are mostly from cold weather tones and then just some random warm weather tone garment in that, or the opposite. Let's use this here as an example. Obviously this guy's wearing a jacket with shorts, which is in and of itself an issue, but if we just look at the colors, his khaki chinos are very warm weather tone. That bright red plaid shirt, not overly bright, but very much, exuding summer vibes. Yet that jacket is just so, dark and somber. It all just looks a little mismatched, and the jacket especially looks out of place with the rest of the outfit. Flip it around, here we've got some great fall colors. We've got, an indigo with the denim, rich brown, earthy tones in the shoes, nice rich gray there. It all looks very fall, except for that Henley is such a bright tropical sky blue, looks out of place. So, what's the solution? Let's say if you want to wear a red plaid shirt with a gray jacket, you want to make sure that the gray is not a somber charcoal, but a bright, light, summery gray. And then suddenly it all looks congruent. Or if you want to keep that charcoal gray jacket and you want to pair it with red, a deeper, more somber burgundy would look a lot better and more congruent with that. Flipping it over to the, the earthy fall tones and the sky blue shirt, if you want to make the sky blue shirt work, you want to brighten up the other garments like lighter gray, lighter blues. All of a sudden it makes sense. Or if you really love the rest of that outfit and you want to make a light blue shirt work with it, again, think Phone in the Dark. Take that brightness level, dim it down a little bit, still a light blue, but the seasonal tones are all congruent and they all make sense together. So if you can keep these concepts in mind when you're putting your clothes together, you'll find it's a lot easier to avoid bad color combinations and color clashing when you're making outfits going forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.